Hey zombie fans, looking for a good comic to read? Hey comic fans, looking for a good zombie story to read? Boy, do we have news for you! DC Comics has a new story going, and we're gonna dive deep into the first 3 issues of the comic series Bleeding Hearts. Let's get to it!
When I first picked up the new DC Comics series titled Bleeding Hearts, I expected a generic zombie thriller, but I was in for a surprise. It's only been the first 3 issues, and I am already hooked on a story that is such a welcome change from the stereotypical zombie trope. I am quick to recommend this to fellow comic book enthusiasts, and Bleeding Hearts has soared quickly through the popularity charts because people are realizing the uniqueness of the narrative. What I love the most about the comic series is that it starts small, in a world where hope has been overrun by a zombie outbreak. But the story comes from the undead perspective, and our protagonist here is one of the flesh-hungry zombies. Only there's something special about him, because he has started to experience human emotions of late, courtesy of a beating heart. I had to bring this story to you. So, in this video, I'll break down the story so far and explore why this zombie outbreak is hitting harder than most other horror comics managed to. What is Bleeding Hearts all about? Bleeding Hearts is the latest DC zombie horror series, and it marks the return of the much-loved DC Comics imprint Vertigo. It's the brainchild of writer Dennis Camp, with artwork by Stipp and Morian, and I am quite impressed by Camp already, even though these are still early days for him in the industry. If you flip through the pages without reading, it will seem like a very casual tone and vibe, but the underlying philosophy is deep enough. So, the story of this comic series is focused around the central character Poke and his friend Mush, both of whom have turned into zombies since the outbreak. They are 2 Arizona natives who live a nomadic zombie life seeking out the living for food. But things get complicated for Poke, whose heart starts beating again, and he experiences something that no other zombie does: compassion. He starts wondering if it is fair to hunt and eat the living, and as a longtime zombie fan, I love the unexpected twist here. Clearly, Dennis Camp knows about the tropes and stereotypes of the genre, and he has used this comic series to drop a satirical take on the zombie point of view and the complications of life in a post-apocalyptic zombie overrun wasteland. The narrative gives the reader a glimpse into the horrifying acts of the zombies, but since you already get their point of view, it makes you somewhat empathetic toward them. I mean, it's not like they have a choice either, but to hunt the living for food. Alright, now, enough of overviews and analysis. Let me quickly break down the detailed story of the first 3 issues of Bleeding Heart that have been released so far. There will be some major spoilers going ahead, so you've been warned. The story so far. The writer wastes no time in getting straight to the point, and Bleeding Hearts opens with a scene from a zombie attack on the living. The survivors are few and on the run as a horde of zombies close in. The others manage to escape, but one of the survivors is not so lucky, and the zombies quickly tear him apart limb from limb. The organs are ripped off and everyone is busy in this feeding frenzy, except for one zombie named Poke. Well, his whole name is Mouse Pokes Golf Ball Out of Head Hole, and the short and easy form is Poke. He stands away from the messy zombie crowd and wonders about the changes that he is experiencing. Something doesn't feel right in him, and it's revealed that he has a beating heart inside, which is unusual for a zombie. His friend Mush, short for Mushrooms Grow Up All Over Like Little Forests, is like any other average zombie, and he enjoys the flesh and bones. He even brings a few pieces for his friend Poke, who is reluctant to eat because it feels strange. There is something about the appearance of Poke and Mush that makes them easy to identify in the zombie horde. Poke has a flower growing out of his head, and Mush has mushrooms all over his neck and back, and they have mutated and deformed bodies, presumably from the time they were transformed. Mush seems like a supportive friend who dismisses Poke's complaints about not feeling well, and asks him to die a little. And I like these quirky zombie perspectives for everything. In order to seem normal and fit in, Poke sucks on a toe to convince Mush that he is still the same. But something has clearly changed. The first issue also shares some crucial inputs about the zombie life in this apocalyptic world. There are some biological benefits to sticking together in large groups for zombies, and sharing meals apparently strengthens their social bonds. As Patient Zero, a great dead man, once said, "Culture grows around carcasses." Poke also points out that contrary to the belief that the undead hate life, They actually seek out life and go searching for it everywhere. This is then followed by another zombie hunt, where a female human survivor tries to fend off the attackers with a few gunshots. Finally, when she is overwhelmed and outnumbered, she puts the gun to her head, choosing to end things on her own terms instead of being eaten alive. After the hunt, Poke asks Mush if he ever feels a continuous rhythmic thumping, but Mush is oblivious to such sensations, and Poke doesn't probe further. I find it fascinating how the zombie horde has its own set of rules and societal norms. They are informally organized and nomadic in nature, and the membership is fluid, where the dead keep joining and breaking away. The bonds are less intense, and Poke had earlier spent some lonely years in the endless deserts, and he formed a partnership with Mush that is equivalent to human friendship. The first issue also shows some of the other members of the horde, and I love the one who is impaled by a pipe through his face. There is one zombie who keeps entertaining the horde with his antics, and there's one who doesn't have his entire upper body, and it's hilarious to just see a pair of legs walking around. They're keen on finding the survivors who got away in the first sequence, and after that, they seek out other living settlements. And it becomes clear that the outbreak has been ongoing for a very long time now, because one of the zombies reveal that they rarely find the living, and when they do, the living hardly put up a fight, which takes the fun out of the hunt. The zombie society does have some basic rules of sharing food, and there's one greedy zombie who has been shunned because he once refused to share evenly with his fellow undead. After the discussion, Poke and Mush head to the outskirts to look for the survivors, and this is when Poke tells us about how he first met Mush, who he saved from a wildfire. Zombies do not like fire, and Mush has always been grateful to him for taking him out of that situation. They've been inseparable ever since, and now they find themselves exploring the suburbs together. Poke recounts about the time when they came upon a father with his kids, and the father chose to use his remaining bullets to shoot the kids dead, even though he was killed by the zombies. Recounting these moments makes Poke ask Mush if they are evil, and once again, Mush doesn't know where such thoughts are coming from. You can tell that it is compassion awakening inside Poke, and things are about to get complicated. In the final panel of the first issue, Poke comes across a couple of survivors in a room, a mother and her daughter who is no more than a toddler named Rabbit. He stands there undecided with his throbbing heart as the mother points his gun at him and hugs her daughter tightly. I also realize that I've seen the mother-daughter duo before among the survivors in the first panel who got away earlier. The second issue opens with Poke standing puzzled before the terrified mother who clutches at her child desperately. The mother knows that they are about to die, but she assures her little girl that it'll be alright. We then get a throwback of the time when little Rabbit was born, and by then, the outbreak was already in full swing. Her husband, Solomon, helped during the birthing process in the car, but their parenthood was short-lived because they were soon discovered by a zombie horde. Solomon led the zombies away from her and the baby, sacrificing himself for them. But just as she gets a grip on reality, she realizes that the zombie is gone because Poke has walked away without harming them. Now that is some new zombie move for sure. She recounts her struggles with her kid Rabbit as they moved from one place to another, and at last they had found a group of fellow survivors. Rabbit, who is way more mature for her age, had deeply connected with the others, but the group was ravaged by zombies, scattering them. Now, all Rabbit had left was a tiny soft toy sewn by her dead father, and she named it Flip. Unfortunately, after the encounter with Poke, Flip has gone missing because Poke now has it. She's heartbroken, but mature enough to let go of a silly little toy in such a crisis. But the more worrying thing is that her mother has an injured leg that doesn't allow her to run or walk very fast. Rabbit wonders why the young zombie boy didn't kill them or attempt to eat them, and even her mother doesn't have the answers to this. Suddenly, Poke returns, and this time, he has come back with some food, and he also hands over Flip to little Rabbit. The mother panics, even though Poke tries to communicate, and asks them to stay here because leaving the premises is not safe with the other zombies prowling around. Of course, the zombie vocabulary makes no sense to human ears, but I find it an adorable little moment when Poke affectionately lets Rabbit touch the flower on his head. Rabbit is more trusting than her mother, and she wonders if this zombie is friendly. Her mother, however, cannot imagine something like that, and she's convinced that this is simply a trick to keep them as food for later. Poke tries his best to convey that it is best for them to be as quiet as possible, but nothing goes through, and he just stacks up a lot of things in boxes to keep them locked in this room. He does it for safekeeping out of the goodness of his heart, but the mother thinks he just wants to fatten them up for future consumption. You see, the human nature is to be suspicious, and the dead are a lot more simple that way. Even Poke knows that what he's doing is unnatural, and the normal thing to do would be to knock them unconscious and drag them to the horde to be eaten together. The third issue makes it very clear that the humanity inside Poke is strong enough. He hands over Ribbit to her mother and shows no sign of aggression whatsoever. He stands there confused as her mother hugs her tightly, and he doesn't understand the basic human emotions even though he feels the urge to protect them. Rabbit, however, is convinced that the zombie does not intend to hurt them in any way. She is a kid after all, and I think the point that the writer is trying to make here is that a human kid is as innocent as an adult zombie. Yes, they are all killing machines, but only because they have to in order to survive and driven by their basic instinct. Meanwhile, after barricading them inside a small room, Poke goes to a zombie meeting to discuss their future course of action. This is when he learns from Mush that the zombies plan to look inside the school building, which is where Rabbit and her mother are hiding. On the other hand, the mother is able to break out of the barricade, but out in the open, her chances don't look too bright, with an entire zombie horde after them. When she spots the zombies looking for them everywhere, she plans to take a dreaded and desperate step by shooting little Rabbit to save her from the pain of being torn apart. However, she stops when she realizes that Poke is actively leading the zombies away from them in a different direction. Now Rabbit is even more convinced that Poke is friendly and doesn't intend to hurt them in the slightest, and it is safe for them, at least for now. I wonder where the story goes next from here, but I would love to know why Poke is so different from the other zombies. There must be a reason behind his humanity and compassion, and the complications are only going to increase when the other members of the Horde find out about his beating heart. I wonder what his best buddy Mush will think about this. Well, I'll come back to you when the new issue drops, but as for now, this is the story that we have, and it is pretty damn good. Why are people going gaga over this comic series? Bleeding Hearts is slowly and steadily making its way among the best sellers, and let me give you my 2 cents on the reason behind its rising popularity. As I have said before in this video, the comic series offers an alternative take on the zombie genre, which is something you got to appreciate. I mean, here you have a zombie protagonist who you are rooting for, and even though he and his buddy are eating the living, you have to sympathize for Poke, who is caught up between his compassion and his hunger. More importantly, the narrative is fun, and there are instances that make you see the zombie society in a human light. For example, a zombie member who eats an entire family for the living alone is shunned from the group because of his greed, and Poke wonders if the shunning is unfair since everyone is flawed and has moments that they regret later. When have you ever seen zombies contemplating philosophies like this? I'm a fan of the supportive banter between Poke and Mush, even though I am curious to find out how Mush reacts when he finds out that Poke has been actively helping the mother-daughter duo. Moreover, it must be hard on Poke to not be able to confide in Mush about his true feelings, even though he is his best friend. Another reason to love this comic series is the artwork that is a mix of goofy and creative. The gore doesn't hurt your eyes because the tone is purposely comedic, but the narrative also drops these heavy lines and theories that make you think. Overall, there is a lot to get you hooked onto this ongoing series, and I strongly recommend that you start following Bleeding Hearts. We're still into the early days of the comic series, and you can always keep up with this video and quickly breeze through the first 3 issues. Some are already calling this the best comic series since The Walking Dead, but I'll hold that thought for a few more issues. But I have to admit that the story is promising, and this can well turn out to be an all-time classic. I'm guessing that the story will take a more serious turn when Mush finds out about the changes in Poke, and how he reacts to this newfound humanity will determine the next course of the story. Let me know in the comments below what you think of this comic series, and also share your views on how you want the story to continue, with the same casual silliness and humor, or with a more serious tone. If you appreciate the efforts to bring you this content, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more such videos.